Okay, great. Thank you for that. On to the topic. So today the topic is Journey to Insignificance. All right. So Babaji, who is one of the founding Heartfulness guides, he sometimes refers to the spiritual journey that we're proceeding towards the zero or the center. Wow. Okay, what does it mean? Proceeding towards the center or the zero. So it's a funny thing, this idea of zero, because on one hand, if we think of it from our human conception, the way we talk about zero, if you took a test and you scored zero, that means that's not good. Yes, and Peter, believe me, if you gave me a test, I'd probably be scoring around zero. So from that perspective, zero is, and we think of something like that. Zero, we scored a zero, or, we think of zero as a loss. We have the idea that zero is a loss. Now, the other meaning of zero is zero can also be all and everything. It can be the infinite. Now, let me give you an example. Let's say all of us here are assigned a number. Our personality is assigned a number, and each of us is a number from 1 to 9. Okay? So we're all a number from 1 to 9. That's us. That's our personality. Okay. Now, in this case, an interesting thing happens. When you add a zero after your number, wow, you just increased your value. And of course, you could add a zero in front of the number too, but the zero has a magical ability to add the infinite to our number. Okay, this is what meditation does for us. Meditation is like adding a zero to ourself. Okay, so it's mysterious in that on one hand we become all and everything, and on the other hand, that all and everything is also nothing. And I just want to share an experience that I had when I was 15 that sort of gives some context to this idea of journey to insignificance and what it could mean. Is that when I was very young, 12 years old, I started taking Aikido, and many of you have heard this story. And my teacher had come from Japan, and he had studied under the founder of Aikido, and he taught us how to flow this ki energy through the body, and he taught us meditation and some chanting and different things. It's a form of martial art, but it's more elevated than, in my opinion, than judo and karate, in that it's not merely a self-defense. It's kind of a way of tuning oneself to nature. So at 12 years old, I started taking Aikido, and that got me interested in, meditation. And it got me interested in, I started looking at Zen and Buddhism and Taoism. And I didn't understand any of these things. I didn't really understand the books that I was reading, but they were interesting. And I was into Christian mysticism and psychic sciences and all kinds of things that anybody at that age might be interested in. But I started doing my own practice of Zen. And in a way, it's like the modern day mindfulness, in that I was bringing my thoughts, bringing my mind, bringing my attention to the present moment over and over and over again. And this is when I was about 15 years old. I had my own intense practice. At that time, I didn't have a teacher or anything. I was just doing it on my own. And one day, and I'll spare all the details, but one day I was riding my bike, and I had this thought percolate up from deep inside me. And the thought was something like, you don't get something from nothing. Okay. It was something like that thought. I don't remember exactly. And so it caught my attention. And I'm riding my bike, and it came again. And it was a little more pronounced. You don't get something from nothing. And this was like a Zen koan almost. It was something like confounding me. And this repeated maybe 20 times. And finally I rode my bike and I got to the top of this small hill where there was a traffic light there, and I stopped. And this thought repeated one more time. You don't get something from nothing. Whew. And I felt like I was being turned inside out. And in one instant, all thought stopped. The very mechanism that produces thought, the mind, was gone, dissipated. And I knew everything. It was a state of immense, well, I couldn't say immense. I can't use a word to describe what this, I can't describe what it was. But it was I realized, oh, this must be that enlightenment thing I've been reading about. And it was an enlightenment of sorts. And for about a week, I had no mind, no thoughts. And I would go to bed at night, no thoughts, wake up in the morning, no thoughts. Whatever I would need to know was instantly there. There was no need for some linear process superimposed on myself to understand something or to know something. And it was pretty incredible, actually. And it was almost like the only thing that can contain everything is nothing. So as a result of this, I became a very bad student. When I would go to school, I was in 10th grade, I think at the time, I'd go to school, and I just could no longer really relate to linear learning, writing things on the blackboard, reading a chapter and trying to piece it all together. All of this to me seemed almost, and I hate to say it like this, sorry, Peter, but it seemed prehistoric to me. I totally knew that this whole facade of time was really an illusion. And, the way we have programmed ourselves to sort of be slaves of time in a way, because time controls us in every possible way. And we live a time-based existence. So, and the other thing I'll share, and you've heard me say this too before, is that, and I believe, and this is again from my own understanding, that the reason we are sharing this reality together is because we are all living on a planet with a 24-hour time cycle. So we have, 12 hours a day, 12 hours of night, and this is how it goes. So we're having our shared reality is because of our shared perception of time. It's my own thought about it. I don't know if I'm right or not, but so in meditation, it is a journey to insignificance. And what is the persistent thing that holds together our persona, holds together our perception of time, holds together all of our filters about ourself and who we are? And that is the ego. So the ego is very necessary to exist in this world. We need the ego. In its pure state, the ego's function is like a gravity. It holds our sense of awareness together, our sense of I. It holds it together. So in this journey to insignificance, we can never really beat the ego. But what we're attempting to do is to sort of sublimate it and bring it back to a degree of normalcy. And if I want to use, human terms for this journey of insignificance, I'd say we become more humble, more compassionate, more loving, less judgmental, less reactive. So, in these human terms, of course, the zero also applies in many ways. Less and more, less and more, less and more. But, from that perspective, as we proceed on our journey towards insignificance, we're letting go of this tremendous hold that the ego has on us. Now, why is it so difficult to reach this zero and to abide in this state of, freedom from the weight of the ego, freedom from the weight of the self, the I? Why is it so hard to do? Well, okay, now here's another invertendo, as Babaji uses this beautiful word, invertendo principle, is that when we think of the zero, again, if we think of it in terms of that it has no value, but if we think of it in terms of space and vacuum, if we think of the vacuum as zero, well, the vacuum is the most powerful thing in the universe. The vacuum demands that it be filled. And when we meditate and when we do our cleaning, heartfulness cleaning, we, in a one sense, we're vacuumizing ourselves. We're creating a vacuum within, especially in the cleaning process. We're getting rid of all of our past impressions. We're getting rid of the effects of our past, which tend to influence our daily life. We're getting rid of all of that. We're letting go of all of it. We're cleaning it away. And as a result, now we're left in this sort of vacuumized state. So what happens, and we all know this, when we come out of our meditation, is that very slowly, here come the thoughts again, oh no, I remember what I have to do today, and my today's to-do list is popped back in my head, or the song that was going through my head before I started meditation, it's starting to come back again. I mean, these are all the things that happen. So the vacuum gets filled up again. Vacuum gets filled up again. And generally it's filled up with all the same stuff, because that's the stuff that we carry within us. And it's like gravity. It's attached to the ego. And so it's pulling all of these things back, these patterns back, these influences come up again. So it's a long process of sort of diffusing the ego. And the way we do it is through a diversion. We don't confront the ego or our stream of thoughts directly. We divert our attention way to something that is transcendent. We divert our thought and our thinking to this idea that we're resting on the source of light. We're resting on this lightness, this source of lightness, source of light that's already present in our heart. Okay, so that's an interesting and beautiful way to sort of reach this zero in a positive way, okay? Because instead now of thinking about, okay, that I have to reach this zero in myself, this point of insignificance where the ego falls away, instead of that, which is a struggle and is a powerful force to overcome. Instead of that, what we're doing when we approach it with this idea of filling ourselves with this light, the source of light, and acknowledging the source of light within, then what we're saying is, oh, wow, if we look out in the sky at night, everything appears dark, but actually everything's filled with light. There's light everywhere. Light is everywhere. Everywhere. And we also are beings of light. And Babaji says that we are light. See, that's what he says. And Einstein also says that we are light beings. That's how he puts it. We are light beings. So I hope you're following me on this. I know this might be a little deep. I'm trying to explain it in a simple way, but I don't know how successful I am. But we kind of see that, okay, this is the journey. It's a journey to insignificance in a way, but that's a positive thing. Because we're really, when we uncover our total insignificance, that is our true self, without any masquerades, without any filters, without any influences left. That's when we become the true self. And we give words to that state. We call it enlightenment. We call it realization. We call it oneness with God. We call it emergence with the self. We call it the ultimate. So we give it many names, but it all means the same thing, is that we are become the source. We merge with the source of our own existence. And that's what we do in meditation. So the practice of meditation, of heartfulness, and many meditations is very scientific. It's got caught up in a bunch of woo-woo things, because I think when we experience things that are out of the ordinary, we tend to label those as ooh, ah, or something mystical. And we need to realize that these are states that are supernatural, not supernatural from the way we've given define that word supernatural as something strange or something out of the way out. No, this is it's natural where we're going. And when we're having these experiences that are so cosmic, and having these experiences that can be so universal in scope, sometimes we can feel like we're the entire universe. When we're having things like that, that's natural, but it's just supernatural. and when we meditate, it's possible to tap into some of these types of experiences. And some of us may have experiences like that, and some of us may not have experiences like that. But it's not about the experience, because I can assure one and all that the experiences that we have are usually in the beginning of our journey, when we're starting to explore and open up our consciousness. That's when we're having experiences. Why are we having experiences then? This is a good question. The reason we have experiences in the beginning is because we're now experiencing a different inner environment than what we're used to. And so because it's different, we can compare. We can say, oh, wow, I feel this is what I felt today, or I saw something. I saw some lights, or I felt this, or I was expanded outside my body, or any of these things. It's because we're experiencing them for the first time, so therefore we are viewing two perspectives. But as we go on the spiritual journey and doing our meditation, these experiences fall away. Why do they fall away? Here's the reason, is that if you're climbing up the mountain, okay, all of us are climbing up a mountain, all right? And we're all at different places on this mountain. And down below, we can see the villages, and we see the people, and we can wave to each other, and we all seeing different views from different angles and everything. Oh, I'm seeing a forest over here, says Josh. And over here, Peter's saying, no, it looks like the desert to me. And but when we get to the top, we're all seeing things the same. And maybe the cloud layers below, and we're just all there saying, wow, looks like clouds. So this is the spiritual journey. In the beginning, there's a lot of differences and a lot of perceptions and a lot of things we can note down in our diary that are all good and useful, and they show that we're progressing. They're very useful to have these different experiences and feelings. We should note them in our diary, in our journal. We should write down all these things. And we should also write down, I didn't experience anything today. And the reason we want to write that down in our journal is because we become more sensitive. we become more sensitive, and we become a better observer. And so in the beginning, we're the observer, but as we reach that mountaintop, we become the witness. And the observer is the analytical, I'm seeing this, and the witness is just